Nota vai payekli.
What happened and why? Why did the Russians do this? You can't make wise decisions about the future without understanding what just happened. It's a prerequisite.
Ladies and gentlemen, conflict in Ukraine has shown zero signs of lessening. But today the larger question remains, a question I want to bring before you this weekend. Who is steering the circumstances towards an escalation? To America's tactic to pressure nations across the world to its line and isolate Russia, is it really feasible? It's not. That's my firm view. Trying to isolate Russia completely, is that simply a means to create an American hegemony all over again?
Crisis demands crystal clear thinking. So now is the moment to ignore the people who've been consistently wrong and instead listen carefully to the people who've gotten it right in the past, the ones who saw the Ukraine war coming and said so out loud. Watch this carefully. We think you'll agree it's an analysis worth hearing. Here's Nigel Farage 8 years ago on Ukraine.
We directly encouraged the uprising in the Ukraine that led to the toppling of the President Yanukovych, and that led, of course, in turn to Vladimir Putin reacting. And the moral of the story is, if you poke the Russian bear with a stick, don't be surprised when he reacts. And as we speak, there are NATO soldiers engaged in military exercises in the Ukraine. Have we taken leave of our senses? Do we actually want to have a war with Putin? Because if we do, we're certainly going about it the right way. We stop playing war games in the Ukraine. Let's not go on provoking Putin, whether we like him or not.
About all the things that you said was yours and mine. Did you ever stop to notice all the blood we've shed before? Did you ever stop to notice the crying earth is weeping shores?
Say goodbye and look at yourself and stay blessed. Peace up.
What happened and why? Why did the Russians do this?
Ladies and gentlemen, conflict in Ukraine has shown zero signs of lessening. But today the larger question remains, a question I want to bring before you this weekend. Who is steering the circumstances towards an escalation? To America's tactic to pressure nations across the world to its line and isolate Russia, is it really feasible? It's not. That's my firm view. Trying to isolate Russia completely, is that simply a means to create an American hegemony all over again? Ladies and gentlemen, we hold the view here at Republic that if you end the war, you must engage Russia, not try to isolate it. Let's debate.
It's not treasonous to ask that. It's essential. You can't make wise decisions about the future without understanding what just happened. It's a prerequisite. But our leaders so far have refused to do that. They keep lying to themselves. They're imposing censorship on the rest of us. They're forcing the entire American population to mouth childish slogans about good versus evil. It's insulting, but worse, it's not helpful. This is not how nations survive complex moments like this. Crisis demands crystal clear thinking. So now is the moment to ignore the people who've been consistently wrong and instead listen carefully to the people who've gotten it right in the past, the ones who saw the Ukraine war coming and said so out loud. Those are the people you should be listening to, and one of them is Nigel Farage. Nobody would call Farage a stooge of Vladimir Putin, just the opposite. Farage is a nationalist. He cares about his own country. He's devoted his life to it. In his case, his country is Great Britain, whose long-term interests have been gravely damaged by the Russian invasion and by the West's response to it. The same is true, unfortunately, of our country. The U.S. has never had a president as reckless as Joe Biden is. We're going to pay the price for that for a long time. But Nigel Farage, had you asked him, could have predicted all of this. In fact, he did predict it back in 2014 as the leader of the UK Independence Party. Farage gave a speech to the European Parliament that year, which unfortunately we just saw yesterday. In retrospect, his words seem prophetic. Farage understood what would happen because he saw clearly what had already taken place. Watch this carefully. We think you'll agree it's an analysis worth hearing. Here's Nigel Farage 8 years ago on Ukraine.
Amongst the long list of foreign policy failures and contradictions in the last few years, including of course the bombing of Libya, the desire to arm the rebels in Syria, has been the unnecessary provocation of Vladimir Putin. This EU empire, ever seeking to expand, stated its territorial claim on the Ukraine some years ago. Just to make that worse, of course, some NATO members said they too would like the Ukraine to join NATO. We directly encouraged the uprising in the Ukraine that led to the toppling of the President Yanukovych, and that led, of course, in turn to Vladimir Putin reacting. And the moral of the story is, if you poke the Russian bear with a stick, don't be surprised when he reacts. Now, just to continue with that, today we are rushing through an association agreement at undue speed with the Ukraine, and as we speak, there are NATO soldiers engaged in military exercises in the Ukraine. Have we taken leave of our senses? Do we actually want to have a war with Putin? Because if we do, we're certainly going about it the right way. Perhaps we ought to recognise that the West now faces the biggest threat and crisis to our way of life that we have seen for over 70 years. The recent beheadings of the British and American hostages graphically illustrates the problem. And of course we have our own citizens from our own countries engaged in that struggle too. In the war against Islamic extremism, Vladimir Putin, whatever we may think of him as a human being, is actually on our side. I suggest we grow up. I suggest we recognise the real threat facing all of our countries, communities and societies. We stop playing war games in the Ukraine and we start to prepare a plan to help countries like Syria, like Iraq, like Kenya, like indeed Nigeria, to try and help them to deal with the real threat that faces us. Let's not go on provoking Putin, whether we like him or not.
The war has been on for over a month, and the United States of America is instigating and fueling the conflict.
For free people refused to live in a world of hopelessness and darkness. We will have a different future, a brighter future, rooted in democracy and principle, hope and light, of decency and dignity, of freedom and possibilities.
When the world had hoped for reconciliation and talks, President Biden called President Putin a war criminal, someone who should not remain in power. Many raised this question that was this yet another attempt to provocate Russia.
America is pressurizing sovereign nations to impose lacerating sanctions on Russia.
The rest of the world is watching where you're going to stand as it relates to this conflict, whether it's support for Russia in any form as they are illegally invading Ukraine.
Now the world is pushing back on America's pressure tactics.
The issue is that whether, what's the purpose of the Americans? Are they going to see a ceasefire in Ukraine, or they would like to weaken Russia, or some people were talking about the change of the government. If they are intent about a ceasefire, I think this issue could be sorted very easily.
Fact is, a protracted war benefits America, whether it is by getting more buyers for American oil.
We're going to invest in innovative solutions and technologies to make the switch from fossil fuels. And together, we'll advance the use of clean and renewable hydrogen to reduce our carbon emissions.
Or it be propelling its war economy like it always has.
The death of Colonel Gaddafi has brought to a close a very unfortunate chapter in Libya's history. But it also marks the start of a new era for the Libyan people.
But America's world vision, where it is the nucleus, is under question.
What the American wants is a unipolar world, which would be not like a global village, which would be like an American village, and maybe American saloon where, you know, who is the strongest is calling the shots.
Countries like India are not going to be dragged into a conflict. India will put India first.
When oil prices go up, I think it's natural for countries to go out into the market and look for what are good deals for their people. But I am pretty sure if we wait 2 or 3 months and actually look at who are the big buyers of Russian gas and oil, I suspect the list won't be very different from what it used to be, and I suspect we won't be in the top 10 on that list.
Isolating Russia may be in America's favor, but does it end the war?
Проверяем.
Куда направляем? Чего машина такая грязная? Машина на штрафплощадке подводит.
Continue loving, cause you're considered wifey and I'm considered husband, and I'ma always be there for you. Either way you look at it, I ain't going nowhere from a muffin. If she gon' hold it down, can't nobody tell her nothing. Got the kind of love that always make up after fussing, and that's what gets me closer to you. And no one knows why I'm into you.
Not that way, but you. Get the train and let's go to Lviv. Right, check this out, yeah? Hello everyone, just another day from Lviv, from Old Town Square, Lviv. Right, sun is shining, well it's beautiful, and then we're having a beer. There you go. And guess how much it is? It's only £1. No, it's not £1. 1 second, I'll tell you. Yes, it's only £1.72. And that is right in the heart of the old town, Lviv. So you can't get any cheaper, and the best place of course. So what we're going to do today, we're going to hang around a little bit, we're going to take photos, and then we're going to spin the camera a little bit around. And then, England is playing tonight. England against, who's that? Denmark, of course, yeah. So we tried to find somewhere we can go and watch the game tonight. Hopefully, it's going to be a good game, as it was yesterday between Spain and Italy. So, this is the area, man. Look, chilling, billing. Right here, look. There's a barman behind me. I'm practicing my Russian. And there's not many people at the bar at the moment. London Stansted, okay, 1643 at gate 07 at 9:10. Check-in is about happening now. So, see you in London. So, Ukraine, goodbye. Been a long 3 weeks. It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure. We have seen a lot. We have seen a different part of Ukraine, and it's just about time to get home now. There you go. Time to go. 3, 2, 1. Goodbye, Ukraine. Boys and girls, ladies and gents,
welcome to this service.
Our 3-week journey and adventure has finally come to an end, unfortunately, and we have to get back home. And it's been a total pleasure having you coming along on this journey with me. We have been to the places, and we had a good adventure together. So as they say, every good journey comes to an end. So there's the journey.
Welcome to this service for London Liverpool Street.
There you go.
We will be calling at
But so we are on a
London,
train
Liverpool Street.
from London Stansted Airport
The next stop
to
will be
Liverpool
London,
Street.
Liverpool Street.
There you go, you heard it. And then we're gonna get onto your next train and we go home. So, as for the COVID situation, what I've experienced along these 3 weeks, personally I think traveling's not the same anymore. And it comes with lots of restrictions. And it's not pleasant, to be honest. I mean, as it was prior to the COVID situation. There's a full package of uncertainty at this time. It comes along with the travel. And if you're prepared to go through all that, then it's up to you. But as for me, I personally would not travel until the situation gets back to normal. And then, hopefully, things get a lot easier and things get back to normal as it was prior to the COVID situation. So people enjoy themselves. As I said, I mean, I've been to different parts in Azerbaijan, and also I've been in different parts in Ukraine. It's just not the same anymore because of the COVID restrictions, and you have to abide with rules and regulation. And yeah, and on top of it, as I said, I mean, you have to pay extra as well for every time you are traveling from one border to crossing one border to another. And that is not obviously that's not for free, so you have to pay for those tests. As for UK, the UK situation is at the moment based on traffic lights. If you are traveling from the red list, then obviously you are in a big time travel. So that means, my friends, you'll be going to the hotel quarantine process. So that means they will supervise you or manage you throughout your stay for those 10 days in that hotel, and obviously that comes with a cost, and that cost, my friend, is £1,700. Whereas the amber list, if you're traveling from the amber list, which is in my situation, I travelled to Azerbaijan and I travelled to Ukraine, and these two countries on the amber list in UK. So when I'm returning back here in UK, so I can stay in my own place in my home, and then I can go for that quarantine of 10 days. But I have to do 3 tests. Them 3 tests: one pre-departure COVID test, which is a PCR pre-departure COVID test. You take that before you arrive to UK, and then on the second day you're gonna have to do the same, the PCR test, and on the day 8, and that's it. And that will, my friends, will give you the freedom to come out of the quarantine. So comes with all these restrictions and then dramas and all these things and the cost. Do you think it's really worth traveling? Personally, in my personal opinion, no, it doesn't. And I call it a day on travel for now, as I said, until the situation gets back to normal. Hopefully, fingers crossed, everything is going to go back to normal by December. because obviously some of the countries across Europe and across the whole wider world are not on the same level when it comes to inoculation, because some countries they have completed the course of the vaccine, but whereas some other part of the world obviously they are way behind the vaccination. So obviously yes, it is not gonna be back to normal by December. I doubt it very much, but then again there will be some countries where you'll be free to travel, and hopefully we don't have to go through all these quarantine process, or we don't have to do all these stupid sticking things out of our nose and throats and everywhere else, God knows, and don't have to pay that stupid extra amount. Traveling is not cheap anyway, and then to pay that extra bit, I think it just it doesn't make sense. And as I said, even the situation is not that great, because well, I mean, when I've been away for the last 3 weeks, so most of the places, the bars in Russia, they were getting shut past 11 o'clock at night, so do you know what I mean? So it's not the same. Anyway, enough said. Right, it is time for me to say goodbye and look after yourself and stay blessed. Peace out till the next time. So there you go, got some more coming up. Crazy, isn't it? What is it, Friday night? Yes, of course. It's Friday night, that's what it is. London's back and buzzing it again. Retro station or Dungeon House. It's no good. I'm here at the London Bridge. I just got off the train from Sunset Express, and there you go. There ain't no train left. And I'm gonna have to get on the buses or take a taxi, go home. And it's Friday night, come on, it's crazy. On a Friday night and the train is already out. That's so un-London. It's not London. But as I said, it's just stupid COVID, right? Fuck that whole thing up. Right, let's get outside and get a bus. That's the only way we can get home. Alright, let's find it out then. They got all the drunks coming out now. See? Alright, there you go. They don't want to end up the party, right? Alright, anyway. There you go. You can hear people shouting, screaming. They don't want to go home, man. They want to carry on party all night long. This is Shard, London, for you.